Wow, that is quick.
You're alive.
I know. I thought
There
it
you
took
go.
longer than that. So, council, it is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. I'll remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interests at the appropriate time. We do have this up on live on our YouTube channel, as always, so people can watch from home. We'll go to 4A, which is the regular council minutes of June 1st. How does council want to deal with those minutes?
Move to pass them.
Thank
Yeah, I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We have no business arising from those minutes, so we'll go to 6, which is scheduled meetings and events. I'll remind everybody we do have a Public Works Committee meeting this Wednesday at 3 o'clock. And the rest of the meetings are coming up as well. And we'll move on to 7A, council commitments. Does anyone have anything to add to their council commitments? I don't think any of us are going to Europe anytime soon, but
Not right now.
okay. So we'll go to councillor items. We'll start with Colin today. Colin, do you have anything for council today?
Not today, no.
All right. And Wayne, do you have anything for us today?
Yeah, I have two things, Jackie. I'd just like to announce to council or let council know that Wilcox Brothers of Watford are going to be celebrating their 50 years in business this month.
Excellent.
So
That
that's
is
pretty good.
fantastic.
And the other thing is I got a call about high weeds on the corner of Churchill and Forest Road that were blocking visibility. Just wondered if we could get the guys to check that out.
Like in the
Okay.
ditch. Or...
I think it's going up to the stop sign, Todd, that you can't see. So I don't really know. I didn't see it myself.
Okay, I'm
That's
sure
all I
Angela
have.
can. Thank you. Todd, do you have anything for us tonight?
Nothing. Nope.
All right, and Jerry,
No, I have nothing either.
nothing today. All right, I just have a couple of things. One, I'd like to wish a very happy Father's Day to all of our counselors and to our male staff. We appreciate everything that you're doing for your families and being the strong leaders that you are. I also wanted to mention to council that Bill 156 did pass its third and final reading in the House last week, which is exciting. So that bill has gone through. And we did get an announcement from, well, not an official announcement, but just to inform councils in the rural areas that are waiting to hear back about the gas line announcement, that will be deferred until the fall. So we won't hear about whether or not we got the expansion out past Warwick until the fall. It's just with COVID and everything that's been going on, I think it's just been delayed. And that was all I had for today. So we will go on to 8A, which is staff items. And the first thing is Teresa has an update for us on Canada Day celebrations. Teresa.
Thank you, Mayor Roundboats. You should have received an email with an attachment that has the Canada Day, well, the 2020 virtual Canada Day celebration. So thanks to Tourism Sarnia-Lambton for sponsoring this and all 11 municipalities collectively working together. There will be a virtual day celebration. Thanks to each of council members for doing the photos for me for the flyer. So the flyer basically outlines how it's going to work and where you log on. So the app that people need to download and all the information is there for them. So our plan is to have these flyers printed and we'll do Canada Post drop so they get to the households before Canada Day. We are doing ads in both the Independent and the Standard. We'll be doing Facebook and website posts up to Canada Day, probably about the 5 or 6 days before. And we have 2,000 flags, the little hand flags, and Foodland has graciously agreed to hand them out there. So they'll have them on tables for people when they're shopping to pick them up. And the other thing too, we're asking for residents to post their Canada Day photos on Facebook with the hashtag Warwick Canada Proud.
That's great.
Excellent.
Fantastic. So it's not the normal traditional serving hot dogs, but it is better than nothing. It's a COVID new tradition that we're going to go with for this year. So thank you, Teresa, for all your work on that event. That's great. And we'll go on to 8B, which is a verbal update from Amanda on delegation requests for AMO.
Thank you, Mayor Rumbouts. As you are all aware, the annual AMO conference is scheduled for August. And although it will be a virtual conference this year, the province and its ministries are still accepting electronic delegation requests. Members of council and staff who participate in a delegation meeting are required to be registered for the conference. So it's just something we'll have to make sure we take care of administratively. But I'm wondering if there's any interest, and if so, in what areas to submit delegation requests this year. The deadline is actually this Friday, so we'd have to submit them online before Friday, but we can certainly put in some requests. We did have a kind of draft list. I had spoken with Mayor Rumbouts about a couple that maybe we could consider, and they were with OMAFRA, one on thanking them for the approval of Bill 156, as Mayor Rumbouts mentioned, and also potentially discussing with them the Normal Farm Practices Protection Board and its scope and jurisdiction and process. As well, as you know, we do have a pending application in at that board at this time. And also perhaps with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, they're proposing some changes to recycling and producer responsibility, so shifting costs to producers. And while the parameters are still not completely known, some of the draft parameters raise a little bit of comment, I think, from us for a municipality our size. I have corresponded with the County of Lambton on that one, and I do believe they are pursuing a delegation. So maybe that's more or less of a priority for us. And finally, the other one, the third one on our draft list for consideration was with the Ministry of Infrastructure, just inquiring about the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, the ICIP grant for recreation and culture, and their timelines, and advocating how great our project in Warwick is, we think.
Does council have any other suggestions for delegations today for that? I am a registered delegate on that, just so that council knows. So I will be probably representing our township on my own, but I'll do my best to be able to outline everything that we need to discuss with them. And if council thinks of anything between now and Friday, just get in contact with Amanda on that, please. And we'll go on to the verbal update on the Township of Warwick Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Funding Stream. Amanda.
Thank you. So we just received notice from the ministry, and since our last council meeting, we had submitted an application in partnership with Aqua for a lagoon rehabilitation project. So it was a number of capital projects rolled into one kind of rehabilitation project. And we did receive word that unfortunately we did not receive the funding as part of this grant program. So we have followed up with the ministry to inquire perhaps about some of our points and lessons learned about the application process, and haven't heard anything back, but we'll definitely follow that up to make sure that we, you know, learn from our unsuccessful grant applications just as much as we learn from our successful ones.
Thank you. We can't win them all, but we do the best we can to get what we can for the community. So we do have a delegation, but it's scheduled for 6:30. So I'm going to skip over that and go to accounts. Trevor, do you have any comments about the GL summary today? You are on mute if you do have any comments.
Oops,
There you go.
I keep unmuting and we keep muting one another. I have absolutely no comments. Everything's going as planned. The one thing that is going to happen is we got told today that the Watford pumper is ready and it should be delivered by the end of this week or early part of next week also.
oh, wow.
That's fantastic news. I was talking to one of our volunteers last week and he was excited to be receiving that. So that will be a very welcome addition to our fire department for sure.
Are they
Council,
going-
do you have any questions for Trevor on the GL?
Just along with the pump, or where are they going to pick that up? Or is it being delivered?
It's in Brantford right now, but it will be delivered.
Okay, cool.
Amanda.
Mayor Runbouts, my apologies. I think I've missed a verbal update from staff that does relate to GL and spending. Trevor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were also planning to give a verbal update on our interest and penalty fees. Trevor, did I miss that or?
Yes, I was waiting for that. I wasn't sure when it was going to be. Right now.
I missed it, sorry.
Okay.
That's all right.
Right now, our grace period ends at the end of June. We are one of three municipalities that are in alignment with Blue Water Power. It's us, Sarnia, and Petrolia. Sarnia approached Blue Water Power about doing a reduced rate, not a full reduction. However, if they do that, all three have to be on board because it's the same program. They can't modify the programming. As of today, that hasn't been verified by Sarnia if that's going to be the direction, but it's going to council there tonight. Blue Water Power is going to waive their fee for another month if the resident communities will do the same. So what that means to us is that saved us $450 in April, and May it was $950. So it's going up, but it's not significant at this time. So I would like to possibly continue with another month grace period, after which time Blue Water Power will not be extending it any further. And if we want to, we would be paying that outstanding interest ourselves.
Okay, would you like a resolution from council to confirm
I'd like
that?
direction from council to be either in agreement with what Sarnia is going to do because they're going to be the big fish that's going to dictate it, or to whatever interest we have, if we want to waive it, fully have the authority to, at which point in time, absorb the fees ourselves and write the check to Blue Water Power.
Okay, Councillor White.
I would move we follow Sarnia's lead.
Okay, and Councillor Morris?
I second.
Anyone second that? Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. So there's your official direction there, Trevor.
Thank you.
And we do need to get a mover and a seconder to receive and file the GL report.
I'll
Moved by
move.
Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. And all in favor of that. That is carried. Moving on to 11A, we once again have a lot of non-action correspondence. There's a lot happening within the county. So we're getting a lot of that information. Does anyone want to highlight anything or have any questions about any of that? Seeing none, I do need a motion to receive and file all of the correspondence, moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate.
All in favor?
That's carried. Thank you. And on to action correspondence. So we have a few resolutions. There's a couple that are repeats, I believe, the first two. And does council want to support any of those resolutions? Seeing none, I will need a motion to receive and file.
Oh, just wait, just wait.
Oh,
I thought we were talking about the first three.
sorry. No, we're
Yeah,
on to
we-
action correspondence.
I'd like to go to 670, the conservation one. I don't know whether we did that before or not.
That was the resolution.
To support the
asking-
conservation authorities. I think we should support them all we can.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we have a seconder to that? Or Amanda, do you know, have we supported that one?
Sorry, Councillor Westgate, could you clarify what motion you're referring to for me? Sorry.
06-70.
06-70. Oh.
That was for the conservation authorities.
I think we did something before, but I don't know whether it's the same as this.
We might have done one similar, Councillor Westgate, but I don't think exactly this one from the Lake of Bays.
Okay. So Councillor Morris, did you want to second that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Any questions
Thank
or
you.
comments from council? All in favor of supporting that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Was there any other ones, council? Councillor Westgate?
And 669, that's looking at the tax rate on farms and stuff with the rated, our tax rates. I think it's gonna have to be done with that sooner or later, and I'd like to have them look at it. Right
So what
now,
exactly
it's
are they asking
0.25.
there? Just to have it examined, is that what they're
Yeah.
asking?
They're just asking for it to be looked at.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So do we have a seconder to that? Councillor White?
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor?
Mm.
Thank you. Any other ones?
I
Councillor
do,
White.
065 and 66. I think it may be important to be part of that. I know that a lot of essential workers aren't recognized or haven't been in the past, and have been critical to our success through COVID so far. So I would like to support that as well.
Okay. Do we have a seconder to that? Councillor Morris? All in favor? That's carried. No, I agree with you, Councillor White. The essential workers have been incredibly good throughout this pandemic. It's not an easy thing to be in that position, but we do need them. So thank God that they're willing to step up. All right. Any other ones that we want to highlight today or support? And we do need a motion to receive and file the rest of the correspondence. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, all in favor. Thank you. We'll move on. We have about 12 minutes, so we will move on to staff reports. The first one is the current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. Amanda, would you like to highlight anything in that report?
Thanks, Mayor Rambouts. I think, as you can see, our operational situation at the township continues to evolve as the provincial announcements come out. The biggest change since our last council meeting, I think we've seen from a public interface, the announcement that we have entered into stage 2 and the beginning of ramping up of our Parks and Recreation services. So our splash pad is now open. We had some great feedback about that. But that's also meant that, especially given the hot days we've had, but it's also meant a number of procedures need to be established regarding cleaning of the one public washroom that's there. Signage, new signage was created So that's Parks and Recreation has had some changes in operations specifically. Also, as you know, outdoor patios are now able to be open. So we've reached out to our business partners in the community to ask what their plans are. At this time, we haven't received word that any official patios will be opening, although I do know the Legion is having a meeting tonight, I think, to talk about what they plan to do there. And the other biggest change, I think, is that our office staff who were primarily working remotely now continue to work remotely part-time, but we have a regular presence in the office. All calls that come to our township office are answered at the office, and paired with the office staged reopening, our Parks and Recreation manager also is physically at the arena now on a more regular basis. So a little bit of adjustment.
Just to be clear, the office is still closed to the public.
At this time, yes, we do have an emergency control group meeting tomorrow. And as you know, as council knows, we have began to make plans for a full public reopening, and we may consider interim measures as a control group, but at this time it remains closed to the public. That being said, when we have requests for specific services that have to be provided in person, or if someone wants to pay by cash, but aren't, our drop box outside the office says non-cash payments only, we are starting to make arrangements with people to facilitate those services. So drop off your cash payment in the drop box, but give us a call when you're standing there and we'll make sure we come out and get it. So we're starting to see a little bit more adaptation in our service levels, just not fully open.
Thank you. That report, once again, Amanda, is so helpful to read it over. It reminded me even of things that were going on. And I've been asked to remind everyone that just because we are in phase 2 doesn't mean this is over. And we still have to stay diligent. We still have to practice good social distancing, washing our hands, making sure the last thing we want to do is have another uptick of this disease hit this area. So we're all going to stay as diligent as possible so that we can get back to life as we knew it as soon as possible. So any questions for Amanda about that report? Seeing none, I do need a mover and a seconder to receive and file that. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. B is extension of joint land lease agreement with Waste Management and Francis Layton Farms. Moved by Councillor White, you're going to move that one. And Councillor Morris, are you seconding that, or you have?
No, I would like to speak on that if I could.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like us to add a clause in there that no biosolids be allowed to be applied to the land. I think it's kind of hypocritical if we don't have it in there and then we try to fight it coming to Warwick.
That's true.
Amanda.
So one, that's a good point, Councillor Morris. I have a few initial thoughts, which would be, one, this is a proposed extension of an existing lease agreement. So the leaseholder as well as Waste Management would have to both agree to any additional provisions that the municipality would need to put in. And it's not then simply an extension. It's a new lease agreement. So I'll point that out, or at least a revised lease agreement for the 1 year extended term. And my second initial thought was, I think the township, our position has been opposed politically to the storage of biosolids on properties within the township of Warwick. As you know, we've had some challenges with zoning compliance at 6059 Nauvoo Road. Officially as a township, we've never, nor do we need to, I think, take a stance against a particular fertilizer product. But we're welcome. We can certainly add it in. I would need direction from council and clarify that it's for use of that product on the lands And of course, both Waste Management and the leaseholder would need to agree to that. And I guess I would need direction should they not agree. What's council's wishes?
Councilor Morris, do you want to comment on that?
To comment back, Amanda, I think it's important just to have a solid stand on this. I don't know all the rules, but I have seen it already piled on people's wheat fields, and wheat's not going to be off for a few weeks yet, so it's just sitting there. I don't know how it affects the crops that are organic. If we allow this put on our, but if we allow this put on our land, it definitely can't go to organic. I think we need to, I find it very hard to say we'll allow it to be put on Warwick Township owned land, but we won't allow you to store it here. And if it's just an extension, Waste Management and the farmer have to agree to it. And I think it should be put in all our leases that are created for agriculture rental.
We can certainly add that in the future, absolutely. If that's council's wish.
Councilor Wright?
Yeah,
I would add to that.
I'm in agreement with Wayne, and I would vote for the extension, but in the, like, if the future, if we can't adjust this right now, but all future leases as they come up have that clause as part of them. Yeah.
I know there are other landowners who are adding clauses similar to that, not necessarily towards this one specific product, but there is odor and there is good reason to go in that direction. So is that the motion then?
Yes,
That we go ahead with the lease with that provision?
we can do that. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
But if I guess that my modification is if we can't get that in, are we going to extend it to Francis this year, or confirm that he's not going to use that? I guess.
Well,
That's
for cropping, is that for this season's crops? Like he's probably already got his inputs in.
Yeah.
I would think.
Go ahead, Wayne. Yeah.
What year is this for? The crops that are
What
right
season?
now?
So his current agreement expires December 31st, 2020. This extension would provide him a leaseholder extension until December 31st, 2021.
Yeah, so it would be next year's.
Is this
Yeah.
common to have extensions rather than rebid it?
So in this particular agreement, it was for a 3-year term with an option to extend 1 additional year. And yes, in my time with the township, that's been the standard, and it was formed as a standard based on previous examples before my time. And sometimes council chooses to bid the project or to bid the land out, and others they choose to extend for 1 year. In this case, Waste Management actually approached and asked if we could extend, just given resources and prioritization right now.
I'd still like to see the biosolids not used. I don't know if Francis is. Yeah. I know he has used it in the past, but who it is really not the thing. It's whether we want to stick to our guns about opposing and opposing the storage in Warwick Township.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that.
I'd like to, if Todd has the motion, I'd like to second it.
Okay, I agree with Wayne. I'd like to see the biosolids included, like that amendment, and get confirmation, I guess, from Francis that if we are extending it, he's not going to use it next year, or that he will agree not to use it, and that it'll become a permanent clause in the future in all of our lease agreements. So, yep.
Okay. So we're clear on what council wants then, Amanda? Okay, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council. It is almost 6:30, so we're going to go back up to our delegation. I'm sure Peter is waiting to get on.
I just let him in, Mayor Bumbats. He should be joining us
All right.
momentarily.
Great. Hi, Peter. How are you? He's just connecting his audio.
Here.
Hi,
Hi, Peter.
Hi,
Peter?
folks. How's everybody tonight?
Good.
we're good. So Peter is here to give us a quick synopsis of his TRT report for this year and to answer any questions that council may have for him. So Peter, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So first of all, you have two documents that we've given to you to look at. One is a summary, which is about 3 pages, 3 and a little bit pages long, which gives you a good snapshot overview of where we are on this. And then you can dig deeper into the annual report itself and then into its appendices. And that's obviously up to council how deep you need to get embedded in these issues, but it's all there for you if you're curious or want to take a look. Tonight, I'm just going to summarize basically what's happened this year and what the key findings are from our independent technical review team. This is our 11th year as a team reviewing the landfill and its operations. And once again this year, we're finding general compliance with all the provincial and municipal regulatory approval requirements and no serious environmental concerns about the landfill. So that's good news. The landfill continues to be operated in a reasonably well-managed way. It's generally following best management practices, with some exceptions that we've identified, and all regulatory and approval requirements are being met. So that's sort of the good news. The financial audit, which we do at the same time as the annual report, has not identified any significant financial discrepancies. There are a few discrepancies that have to be corrected. Our experience with WM is unfortunately, they're usually discrepancies that are not favoring us financially, but they're usually favoring WM. But to give them credit, they seem like issues that are easily resolvable, and they usually every year resolve them fairly quickly. So we don't anticipate any problem on that score either. However, having said all of that, once again this year, the trends that we were concerned about last year when we reported to you are continuing. The landfill was extremely active this year. It's probably the busiest landfill in Ontario, if not Canada, in terms of the volume of truck traffic, the volume of loads of waste that come into the facility, and the general construction and other activity on the site. And right now it's operating at almost twice its original approved capacity because it obtained that substantial expansion. And some of the trends that we saw last year, which were sort of cracks in the armor of our protective system, we're still seeing them this year. Some of them are slowly being corrected, but many of them are not. And I'm going to highlight a few of the issues that have come up. First of all, twice this year, varying from a long-standing practice, WM has gone ahead and submitted an approval document to the Ministry of the Environment for approval without first consulting with the township or its TRT, which is a significant issue from our perspective, because really, with a couple of minor exceptions, that's never really happened in the past. And the other thing that it's happened on 2 occasions. One was with a permit to take water application, and the second, which turned out to have significant issues with it when we finally got around to looking at it. And the second one was with respect to their financial assurances program, where they had previously committed to giving us a chance to review in advance. So we've been all over WM on this issue. With our emails, and we're telling them that this is not acceptable. But we have a recommendation that we actually have a meeting that's focused on this issue to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think they haven't said it, but I think that they realize that these are mea culpas on their part. And if you don't call them on those things, they might try it again. But because we've called them on it, I believe when we sit down and meet with them, they'll agree. And I think we should put it into a written protocol that this won't happen again. But let's hope. So that was issue number 1. The next issue related to landscaping. This is a perennial problem, is that they're not really replacing dead trees as quickly as they should. So there's still holes and gaps in the visual screen around the landfill site. They did do some replanting, so it was a bit of an improvement from last year. But once again, we're recommending that we keep holding on to our letter of credit. We think we can release about 10,000 of the, or sorry, 15,000 of the $40,000 of that line of credit, but maintain some of it as a message to them that they have to get with the program and complete the works in a more timely way. Third thing was monitoring surface water. There was last year we identified a gap in surface watering. It's still there this year. And we want to get them to address that surface water monitoring issue. The fourth issue was we continue to see elevated levels of leachate in the old landfill site. And we have been giving them recommendations over a number of years on being more aggressive in taking down those leachate levels in the old landfill, because they end up creating problems in terms of breakout and other potential environmental hazards. This year they took a new approach, which was unique in that they let it build up in the landfill on the assumption that they were going to be able to put it all into the poplar system over the course of the year. But that didn't work out for them because it turned out to be a very wet summer and they couldn't do it. So they ended up having to, late in the year, truck a lot of the pumped leachate from the old landfill. But it created issues, and it means that we're further behind than ahead in terms of getting those limits lower. And remember, having those limits lower than the groundwater elevation is really important so that we maintain inward hydraulic gradients to protect the bathtub effect in the landfill. The next issue was another perennial issue is the erosion caused by landfill construction and not replanting quickly enough causes suspended solids in the creek. And they're getting a bit better handle than last year on it, but they're still getting exceedances. They could still do better on that. Once again, this year, they're reporting noise exceedances, but the noise exceedances are not explained properly, and apparently they're related to traffic issues, but it's not clear because they don't do proper reporting. And then on odor complaints, we've had a 600% increase in odor complaints over 2019, over the previous year. Some of that could have been related to another particular operation that I know you were familiar with. But the problem that's the biosolid facility, of course, that was there for some part of that year. But the problem with WM's tracking is they can't distinguish between the two because they don't do proper tracking and monitoring themselves of the odor issue and don't do proper follow-up either. So we're onto them on that issue. And finally, complaints generally. We had 2 meetings last year with the mayor involved and Amanda and myself to sit down with them to try to resolve our concerns about their ability to track complaints, the fact that we're getting them at the township and that they could be doing more to properly track complaints, to properly respond to them in a more timely way, and to record that. And we had a lot of specific suggestions. We have a tracking sheet on the go for that, but we kind of, the last meeting was in October. We were supposed to meet again in April, but because of COVID, we haven't had that meeting. So we have to keep following up on the complaints issue. So the last thing I wanted to do is just point you to a very long recommendation. As usual, I've laid it all out in detail, the specific recommended steps. How am I doing for time, Amanda? Have you been watching? Yeah, do I have enough time to get through the recommendation? Okay, good. So the recommendations are, first of all, that the township direct as per in past years, that I write a letter to WM to ask that they implement all of our recommendations as set out in our report, advising them about that we're going to still maintain a letter of credit, and we're recommending it be reduced to 25,000 from 40, and advising them that all the landscaping issues have to be addressed, and that the financial audit issues have to be addressed. In addition to that, the resolution calls for the township taking some steps to advance the complaints issue with WM. The first thing is the township itself to continue to track its own complaints as they've been doing and report these to WM so that we're showing that, because if we get landfill complaints, they should know about them. The second thing is that I would write to WM asking that they schedule a meeting. And I think this meeting should happen within the next few months so that it can be dealt with before we finalize our annual report. Remember, this is only a draft, and then we'll have time to finalize it in the fall when we hear back from them on it. So during that period of time, we should hold a meeting, another meeting with Amanda and with the mayor to sit down with them across the table and go through the tracking sheet and see where they are. They owe us a response on a number of issues and see if we can resolve those issues. And then to incorporate the results of all that complaints discussion into the final annual report, which will be coming out in the fall. And then the next thing that we, every year we say this, but once again, we're going to be asking that the township set up a meeting with the Ministry of the Environment to discuss the need to return to daily inspections, because one of the findings of our report this year is that we should be having, with a landfill of this size and scale and activity, we need daily ministry inspections to ramp up the quality of the work that's being done here. And we've said this for a number of years since it was taken away from us about six or 7 years ago by the ministry. They're now up to weekly inspections, but we think there's no reason they shouldn't be going to daily. And we're suggesting the township set up a meeting at a high level and try to convince the ministry that they should move to those daily inspections again. And then the final thing is that, and this meeting could be combined with the complaints meeting, but there should be a meeting specifically where we confirm that longstanding practice that before they go to the ministry with any kind of an application or change in operations, they come to the TRT and the township first, have a review process, and then respond to our issues before they do that. And we want to this year, I think what we want to do in our meeting is agree that we'll put that protocol in writing so we can, because it's been a practice, but it's never been put clearly in writing. Let's put it in writing so that if it happens again, we can say, you're not complying with our agreement. And we're hopeful they'll agree with that, because if they don't, I think we've got a bigger problem with WM if they're starting to move away from that practice. So that's it. Those are the recommendations. And so what I'm looking from council for today is approval to do that. And of course, the final element of the recommendation is that we send all this to WM and they come back to us with their full responses. And we have now several tracking sheets on the go that we want them to respond to. They come back to us. We make some effort to try to resolve them through expert discussions. And then we come back with a final TRT report in the fall, at some point in the fall, and get your final approval on finalizing the document. So similar to the past years.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Councillors, this is your opportunity to ask questions. Councillor White.
I agree with everything Peter said, except giving them any money back on their landscape letter of credit. I think they do a terrible job of maintenance on it. It looks awful right now.
This year is terrible.
My suggestion is that we actually send our bylaw officer over there and give them a couple warnings, and we'll bring in our own contractor like we would any other resident in the community, and charge them whatever to actually make it look good. That's my one comment. And then that would set an example for the new owners of the Penta property as well across the road.
Yeah.
Which should be addressed, not part of this discussion. So I don't want to drop the letter of credit, because I think they drop the ball annually on maintenance, and it is the gateway to our community. I think it'll be interesting this year. The majority of odor problems have been the landfill. Most people in this area can distinguish garbage from waste or fertilizer or that type of thing, and garbage has been a major smell. So, I think they'll find that. So I like everything that you suggested, Peter, but I do not agree with dropping anything or giving them any money back on their letter of credit.
And I just, if I could respond briefly to say that I don't have any problem with that personally myself. I was reporting a recommendation from Jim Vafiadis, who said he thought it was reasonable to start to reduce it. But, you're telling me better information, I think, about the state of the screen when he's looking at it in a very narrow technical way, and you're looking at it in, this is not living up to their standard.
No, well,
It's not living up to what was expected.
yeah, they they have flower beds that aren't maintained on the corner. They have grass that's probably 4 feet tall when they cut it.
Mhm.
You know, and then they don't, it's just left there to, like, it looks awful.
Now, the second thing you suggested was to get a bylaw enforcement officer out.
Yeah.
That one I'm less certain of, because I always then put on my lawyer's hat and think, well, what do we have to grab onto to enforce? And we'd have to look at our property standards bylaw to see if that's
We
been.
have
I think
weeds.
that-
We have
Exactly.
provisions surrounding long grass.
Yep.
So you've
I
got,
think it's
you've got
exactly
some.
like any other resident or business in the community.
And we do have that $40,000, which is a renewable line of credit that we could go out and do work ourselves if we think that's the only way we're going to get results here.
Right. And they will pay for it. So win-win.
Yeah, well,
We
it'll
can
come out
also
of
do
the line
that.
of credit.
We can also do it through our property standards bylaw and recoup 15% administration fees on all of the charges accrued on the property. And if unpaid, charged to property taxes, again, as Councillor White's point, as we do with all property standards complaints.
Yeah.
I
So
would
even
recommend
outside of
starting with a detailed letter, which sets out all the things they need to do to come up to both property standards and to come up to their obligations under the site plan agreement.
With a tight
And,
deadline of 30 days to have it.
Give them a
up to
deadline to do it themselves.
Yep.
And if they
And
don't
if
do it
not, we'll do it.
themselves,
Yep.
you advise them, if they don't do it themselves, then we will, under these authorities, we will do it for you.
Yep.
I'm actually quite surprised this year because last year they did it wasn't the best job, but it was a decent job of maintaining that hill and like the berm. And we had made that comment to John McDonald at the WPLC, and he couldn't believe how happy people were based on that berm. And I kept saying to him, that is really important. This is the gateway to our community. You need to maintain that, and then people will overlook other things like odor, maybe, if it looks nice, but if it looks terrible, it's just one more thing that people are not willing to overlook. So I 100% agree with Councillor White. That was one of the things that I saw that I was like, yeah, no. Councillor Westgate.
I agree with Todd in most things, but I think if we go back to the site plan approval, they were never going to cut the grass. They did cut the grass because it made it look better. But in the first approvals, they were never going to cut the grass. It was the type of grass that we were just going to let it grow. But the flower beds and everything else should be maintained.
Yeah.
But the weeds got so bad on that berm that they had no choice. They had to cut the grass because the weeds were way out of control, if I remember right. That was one of the reasons was property.
They cut it just to make it look better.
Well, it does look better right now. It looks brown because they cut it so tall that it's all this dead. It looks like dead. Looks terrible, right, Councillor White? It looks awful.
It looks awful. And it's interesting because, and Jerry, you've been with me, and I know Councillor Morris has gone on them too. We have toured other landfill sites in North America, and some of them are impeccable. The one we went to in Michigan, you enter there, it almost looks like a golf course. You're going into it, you know?
The one we went to outside of Boston was the same.
Yeah.
You could have played golf on the green. Like, I think they can do a lot better job. As far as the money goes, it's not much to them, but it's the principle of it, I think.
Exactly, and they're only going to do what we demand them to do, right? We need to hold them in high standard, and that's just the way it is. I agree with
I'm going to recommend that one of the things we do is go back to Jim and talk to him, and let me talk to him about it, so that maybe we can change the recommendation coming from Jim on this, because he might not be aware of, you know, he just does a snapshot on a day, and he looks in a kind of a very narrow focused way at growth rates and things like that. He may not realize in a broader sense the concern. So
if he was out in the early spring, like just looking at the trees, and even before the spring, the growth on that garden in the corner, it didn't look bad, but now it's just like Councillor Waite said, it's completely overgrown. You can't see the beautiful rocks that they have there. You can't see, it's just overgrown, and it looks terrible.
I'm gonna go back and talk to, just sort of update Jim on this, and then see whether or not, because really it is council's call. It's not a consultant's call. It's council's call whether or not they want to go ahead with something like this. But I want to make sure that, you know, I want to understand better what Jim's rationale was, and see if maybe I can get him to sort of reconsider his recommendation on it, so it's consistent with council's. Because I think he might get, with the additional information, he might agree with council on it. But if he doesn't, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll go ahead with the report as is, and then we'll just simply advise that council has these additional concerns, and we're not prepared to agree to that. That myself might be a stronger message. So
I'm happy to take some pictures, Peter, and send them over to you.
always, sure, why not? I'd like to see what's going on. It helps me.
Councillor White.
Can we request Jim Fafiatis to come out, like let's say 4 times in the summer to check it, like for maintenance checking? Like he probably looks spring and fall, like where trees are at and plants, but can he do that?
Well,
Like,
that's not what
in the
we.
community, so, yeah.
All we have in terms of our agreement with WM is actually an annual landscape review until the screen is fully established, which it never has been. So
Can we not make the annual
pursue that with
review
them
later in the year then?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part, Councilor.
Can we not make the annual review then in July or late June rather than when he maybe is seeing it? I'm sure he's in the area a lot.
Yes.
He's from the area, so.
Yes. We could, or we could just find a way to revisit the way we're dealing with this whole landscape issue, because we've been dealing with it so many years. We're kind of, it's just repetitive how this whole situation is not improving particularly. So we need to find a way to bring it more dramatically to the attention. So maybe we say that, you know, we're going, until you improve this, we're going to be doing more regular inspections by Jim.
Is the annual landscape review well defined, or is it kind of vague at this point?
Well, it's arguably it's pretty vague, I guess. It could have, I guess what I think is it could be defined to have 4 components to it, but you know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Could we tighten it up, and could we define that this is what we consider an annual landscape review, which is 6 visits a year and blah, blah, blah. And it encompasses this. This is the scope of work.
We could provide that. I think we could provide that direction.
Okay.
I have to think about how there's a limited budget in terms of the overall budget for the annual review. So we should get a budget from Jim for what it would cost, and then we'll give it to WM and say, this is what we're going to be doing now on that landscape review until it's finalized. So that's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
So how do we want to proceed? Can we pass these resolutions based without the recommendation to reduce the?
Well, I think we'll revise the recommendation with respect to the landscaping.
Right.
And we'll provide different advice. Right now, we're saying WM be advised that the present 40,000 line of credit should be reduced. It should be maintained, and that the township will be seeking to expand its oversight or something. I'll have to develop some language around it, but to expand its oversight through increased inspections.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Councillor Morris.
Peter, just one more thing on that. Could you spice it up a little bit to say that they have to meet our property standards like every other business, and test what Jerry was saying, see if they come back with the original site plan about the long grass.
Yeah.
Like,
But I don't-
they need
that
to know our
doesn't super-
property standards.
That doesn't supersede, does it?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I think it does if it's in a site plan. Like we have a site plan agreement and we have a site plan approval which attaches landscaping plans. I think this is something where I need to go back and talk to Jim about it too and find out whether or not it's implicit in the landscaping plan that they have long grasses on the but I don't think we can kind of finalize today exactly what the wording of the recommendation is going to be. So I may have to, what I may have to do is if you could just give me direction to generally provide a revised recommendation with respect to the landscaping plan to the satisfaction of the CAO. That would give us enough latitude to put some teeth into it. So
Okay.
basically, the recommendation would be revised to say that WM be advised that the present letter of credit of $40,000 to cover outstanding landscape items would be maintained, and that legal counsel be directed to provide stronger direction to WM with respect to this issue to the satisfaction of the CAO. And then that gives me the latitude with that recommendation to provide that direction. And does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
Good with that?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Does council have any other questions about the TRT report? I had a question. I was wondering, they had a problem with this first cell where they got so high and all of the methane gas things got crushed or something like that.
Right.
Have they come up with a plan to avoid that from happening with the second cell? And have they shown you that plan? Because I think we should be requesting that.
Yeah, I'm not certain what's happened with that. I'd like to go back and ask our team about that because it didn't really come up in the annual review. So maybe
that was what they kept pointing to as far as the methane odor was concerned. Anytime we have a complaint, they explain that, you know, that they got crushed and so they're having to re-go into the hill and things like that. So I'm like, okay, well that happened, but what are you going to do to avoid that happening this time? Because we don't want to have another odor issue that's difficult to absolve within a couple of years.
Right. Yeah, I can't remember what the follow-up was of that issue was, except that through our complaints discussion, you remember they were going to come back to us with this. I think they were going to come back to us with a solution on that issue in the tracking sheet, right? So we could see.
I would like to see it in writing what they're doing differently with this cell.
Okay.
Because I don't know about the rest of council. I just don't want to see that a repeat, you know, learn from your mistakes and tell us how you're going to fix it, because we don't want to have this for every cell where their methane gas collapses and next thing you know, we have major odor issues again. Was there any other questions from council? Councillor Westgate?
Just on that odor issue, they had 44 of the gas collection wells that weren't working because of that. And they're supposed to have a contractor in to fix them this month. Because I had talked to John McDonald and he sent me an email saying 44 gas collection wells that they were fixing.
Yeah, they're fixing them, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting the odors, because they're having to drill back into.
And they're getting
the
another flare stack, and I don't think the flare stack was taking all the gas either.
So what we could do on this issue is we could just, in addition to our normal recommendations, you could just direct me again to include in our letter our request that we get an updated report on how they're addressing this particular issue. It wouldn't necessarily come as a formal recommendation from the TRT. It would just come as a direct recommendation, request from council. And I think it's powerful that way. Council's concerned about this specific issue. And so you could just direct me to do that. And that way I can provide a little bit of background on it in my letter, and I can directly ask them that indicate council's requesting a full report on this issue.
Yeah.
And then we get that back as part of the same process, and we have it, and you can, next time I come back in front of you with the final report, you can see how they've responded. I also think it's an issue, Jackie, that we should bring up in our meeting that I'm suggesting. One of the things we're trying to do is set up this complaints meeting. This is an issue we should put on the agenda for that meeting too.
Yes, absolutely. I think so too. And even what's happening with the second flare, because I think part of the problem when they did the expansion, they did it so quickly. They had so much coming in. They just weren't ready for the volume of methane. And they should have had a second flare in before, and they didn't. Now they've never said that. That was what I suspect happened. So, Councillor Westgate.
John says the second flare, it's in Michigan, waiting to get the permits to bring it across the border.
Okay, well, that's good to know, but it should have been here last year or 2 years ago before they did the expansion, so that it was ready to go when they had the extra methane. But we can't go back in time, but we can learn from that, right? So, Westgate.
I was just gonna say, the pepper plants haven't been taken near the methane that they thought they would. They have trouble with the burners plugging and stuff, so they're trying to fix that too.
That's good information too. Did we lose Peter?
It does, Mayor Rumbas, it does look like we lost Peter. I'll watch for him. If he wants to come, I'm sure he'll try to call back in.
Okay, Alex is here as well, so I'm sure he's qualified to answer any other questions.
Sure. I was just going to add that I'm also remotely signed into our office, and that's cut out. So I presume the internet system is cut out at the office temporarily, but hopefully Peter will call back in on his phone.
Okay, I guess it's not just the rural communities that have issues with internet, so.
So Mayor Rumbas, I believe Peter was looking for direction from council to pursue that letter on odor and landfill gas system repairs and prevention, I guess.
Okay, so do you want a motion to go along with that direction? Or
Sure, yeah, let's do
may
a
as
motion.
well. Okay,
I'll move.
moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. That
Perfect.
Peter sends in a letter. We know what that's all about. So all in favor of that? That's carried. And then we'll go back to the original resolution. Do
As
we want-
amended.
Yeah, as amended. So, okay, so we need a mover and a seconder for the original resolution as amended by Councillor White.
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? And that's carried. Any other questions for Alex before we let him go?
Don't think so.
All good.
All good.
So you're comfortable with that, Amanda? Even if we don't get Peter back, then we should be good for that section of the meeting. Alex, we thank you
Yes.
for coming and joining us tonight, and we'll let you go. You can have a good night.
Thanks for having me. I'll
Thank
call Peter.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
You can maybe update Peter on what just happened.
Will do.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, council, we are going back down to staff reports 13. I believe we were on 13C, which is the LAS Municipal Group Buying Program. So I believe Trevor is the author of this report. Trevor.
When looking at options for replacing the backhoe, Andrew and I got talking about perhaps we should look at the LAS group buying because it's supposed to offer national volume discounts to municipalities, and as being an LAS member, we're already enveloped by it.
Mhm.
I sat in on a presentation last year at AMO and also another one online and thought, let's take a look. We started doing some investigation and found out that the pricing that we would get would be better through them than if we went to a tender. We wouldn't have to do all the legwork, and the contract and legal conditions of the tender are more ironclad through LAS than anything we could write. As such, we're going to propose using that and looking at using it going forward to save time and energy on standard equipment purchases and items like that in the future.
Okay, questions, Councillor White?
Just, can local suppliers be advised on how they can get involved with that then? Like redirected through there? Just
Yep,
so
you
that,
can direct them.
okay. Just so they,
That's a
because that
great
is a bit of a
suggestion.
change from the past, so they
Yeah.
still have an opportunity.
Well,
Okay.
at the end of the day, we will still be buying this from the local distributor that we would have been buying it from anyhow.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
So
So it's really,
Yeah, they
Oh.
channel the contract to the local seller.
oh, okay.
okay.
So
Perfect.
So it's better
And-
for them too, in a
Yep.
sense. It's easier. Okay,
less paperwork for them to do, and they don't have to do the other end of the tender document.
okay, okay.
Any other questions for Trevor on this? Do we have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are going to move on to D, which is our Parks and Rec Tourism and Culture Master Plan Draft Summary Outline of Scope of Project. So Teresa, you've been busy.
So the report is basically, it gives you the background of the previous Parks and Recreation Plan that was for 10 years, ending in 2019. So we'll have a little bit of a gap, but there's still work being done. And so this is just a basic outline of the scope of work that we would want a consultant to do to be able to then make recommendations through their Parks and Rec plan as to projects, programs, repurposing land, whatever we might be looking at over the next 10 years.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? This is really well done report. So there is a recommendation on that report, council. How do we want to deal with that one? Councillor Morris,
I move it.
the recommendation is written, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That is carried. I look forward to seeing that plan when it's done and being a part of the creation of it. I think it's exciting to get that up and running. It'll be great. And we've seen with other communities as they start to grow that they grow faster than their recreation grows, which is an issue. I know Lucan is struggling with that right now, where their growth has gotten big, but they don't have the ball diamonds and the playgrounds to go along with that. So it's good to have a plan going into the growth that we're seeing in our community. So thanks, Teresa. New business, an update from the County of Lambton on Watford Library operations.
Mayor Rumba,
Yes,
I just think we missed
skipped
that
maybe
item
another
14A. Yeah.
you're right. Thank you, Amanda. We did skip the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of June 10th. Councillor White, was there anything from that agenda that you wanted to highlight for the rest of council?
Just, we did kind of talk about a bit about the COVID-19 situation in the cooling centers. And I guess we're looking like kind of forward to the fall, what's happening around some of the seasonal sports that are coming along and how they will be impacted if things happen. So, and we did just let the committee know that we are decommissioning the BMX park as well.
Well, for this year,
For this year. Yeah.
just to clarify. Okay.
Yep.
Great. So we just need a mover and seconder to have those minutes received and filed, I believe. Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you for that reminder, Amanda. We will move on now to new business. And there's an update on the library operations. Is that just information more or less, Amanda? Does council have any questions about that report, those reports? Do you need a motion to receive and file that, Amanda? No? Okay.
No.
And B is council remuneration. Again, is that just for council's information? Okay.
Yes.
We don't need a motion for that?
No.
All right. Well, that's great. So we are on to the closed meeting session. We do need a motion to go in camera for the reasons listed in the agenda, moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That's carried. And just a reminder to anyone who's watching on YouTube that we will be coming back into open session, but we will not be going back live on YouTube since it's just to adjourn the meeting. So we appreciate everyone who tuned in tonight, and we will be going offline now. Thanks and have a good night.